Hi, this is Jody Perry. I'm the president and CEO of the Richland Area Chamber in Economic Development. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our Richland County Mansfield COVID-19 Small Business Emergency Relief Grant Program. Yes, it is quite a title, but it can be very helpful to your business. Let me tell you more. So how did we get here? Well, you might remember back in the spring when Congress passed something called the CARES Act. That was in response to COVID-19 shutdowns. Some of the money was given to the states, and the state in turn gave some to the county and the local municipalities. In July, the Richland County Commissioners reached out to us to see about putting together a small business grant program because they knew many small businesses were still struggling. On August 19th at their county commissioners meeting, they approved $250,000 to be granted to businesses in Richland County. The city of Mansfield also approached us in early August to participate in the same program. And on September 1st, Mansfield City Council also approved $250,000 to be granted to businesses within the city of Mansfield. We're having talks with additional municipalities to contribute additional funds. They will all use this same application period. So now let's talk about what types of businesses are eligible to apply for our small business grant program. First of all, you must be a for-profit business here in Richland County, Ohio. Any form of business is eligible, for example, a corporation, an LLC, an LLP, etc. If it's not a sole proprietorship, then the business must be registered with the Secretary of State's office. If you are a sole proprietorship, you are not required to be registered there, so we will ask for some other form of proof of your business. You must be in operation prior to September 1st, 2019. Later, you'll see that we ask for 2019 business tax returns. The business must have $1.5 million or less in gross income for 2019. The business will provide their employer identification number or their EIN, or if they don't have an EIN, the Social Security number for the owners. Businesses must have 20 FTEs or less. An FTE stands for a full-time equivalent, and that isn't something that business owners often use as a measuring, but let me explain what it is. A full-time employee counts as one FTE. For our purposes, a part-time employee, which is anyone working less than 40 hours, counts as a half FTE. And we are looking also at 1099 contractors as employees using the above definitions as FTEs. So if they're working full-time for you as a 1099, they'll count as one FTE. If they're less than that, then they'll count as a half FTE. So in reality, your business may have many more than 20 employees, depending on what your makeup is of full and part-time staff. Businesses with 2 to 20 FTEs can apply for a maximum grant amount of $7,500. And businesses with less than 2 FTEs have a maximum grant amount of $2,500. And finally, businesses must be current on their local property and income tax obligations. So what businesses are not qualified to apply? First, any business that is permanently closed and or not intending to reopen its business following the pandemic. Now, most businesses have reopened since the spring, but I know there are still a few that are waiting. If you're planning to reopen, that's fine. We're not talking about a temporary shutdown, but a permanently closed business is not eligible. Any business that is in receivership or bankruptcy is also not eligible. Nonprofits are not eligible. I know oftentimes when we talk about grants, they're in relation to nonprofits, but in this instance, a nonprofit is not eligible. Any business that is operating as a skills game or entertainment device arcade is not eligible. Any business that is operating as a sexually oriented business is not eligible. Any business that primarily sells tobacco products, cigarettes, electronic smoking devices, or vapor products is not eligible. Any financial institution that makes loans or issues credit to the public, including but not limited to banks, credit unions, payday lenders, or other similar businesses, is not eligible. And finally, any pass-through entities or real estate holding corporations are not eligible. So now let's talk about how you can use the grant if you are given one. So the good news is there's a lot of flexibility in how you can use the grant. Things that are deductible as ordinary and necessary business expenses related to the cost of closures or uncertainty are going to be included. So let's talk about a few examples. First of all, mortgage payments for your business's principal place of business or rent payments for the same. As long as your location is here in Richland County, those would qualify, with the exception in both instances being if your business is located in your primary residence, then mortgage and rent payments would not be eligible. Utility payments such as electric, gas, sewer, water, or trash removal for your principal place of business certainly would be eligible. Again, with the same caveat, if your business is located in your residence, those costs would not be eligible. Health, property, casualty, and liability insurance payments would be eligible. Vehicle and equipment lease or rental payments for things leased prior to March 15th would be eligible. Salaries or wages of all employees employed by the business would be eligible. And one caveat here, if you claimed employee salaries on the PPP, you have to use a different payroll period for this grant. So we cannot reimburse you for something that you have claimed on another grant program. But if you used, let's say, your PPP money for April and May, you could claim August and September on this program without a problem. Other costs related to the interruption of the business or required closures, those would work. I know some businesses have had additional expenses to be able to comply with the regulations that have come down. That would be a great example of something there. Additionally, a sole proprietor can use the grant funds to replace a portion of its lost revenue. And in order to calculate that, you're going to want to pull out your IRS 1040 and your Schedule C from 2019, and you're going to look at line 31. You can claim up to 1/6 of the net profit reported on your Schedule C. So now let's talk about what you need to do to apply. First, go to our website, richlandareachamber.com. Under the Initiatives tab, you'll see Small Business Grant. When you go to that page, there'll be a green button that says Apply Here for the grant. The deadline to apply is 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, September 13th, 2020. That's an important date, so make sure you mark it down. Once you've gathered all the materials that you'll need, expect to spend about 20 minutes on the application. We've tried to make it as streamlined as possible so that you don't have to spend a ton of time. The very first page of the application, when you click into it, will give you an overview of the information that you'll need. We recommend gathering these numbers before you start filling out the application. Some of the numbers that you'll need include your annual operating revenue and expenses for all of 2019, your annual payroll expense for 2019, your year-to-date operating revenues and expenses for 2020, an estimate of the lost revenue due to COVID-19 through August 31st, 2020, an estimate of increased business expenses due to COVID-19 through August 31st, 2020. And we're going to ask about your employees as of 2 dates, March 15th and September 1st, 2020. So take some time, gather all of that up, and then visit our website to start the application. Some additional items to have handy for the application process would be your business's EIN or the owner's Social Security number, depending on how you file your taxes, contact information of any business owner with more than a 20% share of the business, and your 3-digit NAICS code. and not every business owner knows what a NAICS code is. It's a way that the government uses to classify business. It stands for the North American Industrial Classification System. We only need the first 3 digits. A full NAICS code is 6 digits long. The easiest way to find it is to Google NAICS code and then a description of your business. For example, NAICS code daycare, or NAICS code greenhouse, NAICS code restaurant, something like that. There's also a link in the application itself to a Census Bureau website that you can also double check to make sure that you have the right one. And if you get confused or you're not sure, certainly just call the chamber office and we would be happy to help you. Here's some additional best practice suggestions. First, we certainly recommend that you take your time and be sure to answer all the questions completely. For the scoring part, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, we have to rely on what you tell us to qualify and score your application. So it's really important that everything is correct. Of course, you must be truthful in your responses, and at the very end of the application, you're going to certify that everything you shared with us is the truth. Be careful with the yes or no questions. There's a series of them at the end, and they're not all yeses and they're not all nos. So make sure you read each one and answer truthfully. If you don't understand a question, simply call us and ask. We are happy to help you with this. Before you submit your application, you'll have a chance to review all of your answers, and we certainly recommend that you take the time to double check. Double check your numbers, double check your answers to the yes or no questions. It's really the best if you can double check everything before you submit it. If you make a mistake on the grant application, you can email us at our grants@richlandareachamber.com email address as soon as possible. Explain the mistake and we'll look into it. We are getting a high volume of grant requests, so please be patient with us. However, it's best, if at all possible, that you change it prior to submitting it. The time of completion only factors into the review and decision-making process in the event that we have a tied score and are at the end of our grant dollars. In other words, earlier is better than later, but do not rush to complete it just to get it in first. As I'm recording this, we're about halfway through our grant application period, and there's still plenty of time to apply. Businesses that got in first do not score higher than the ones that are further back in the process. Only when we're at the point of running out of money and we have a tie does when you apply factor in. So now let's talk about how your application is scored. We've spent a lot of time setting out an objective scoring process based on the information that you're giving us in the application. I want to give a shout out. We have been modeling our program on the Greater Akron Chambers program. Though we modeled it after that, we did apply our own methodology and our own scoring criteria so that it more reflects Richland County. But certainly they had put together a really great program, so we wanted to emulate it. The scoring drives the funding allocations until the money is gone. We know this is a small town and we all know a lot of people, so it was really important to us that we make the process as objective as possible. We have a grant underwriting committee of 9 people, and they spent several weeks putting together our scoring criteria, looking at the different items that we're scoring upon, and deciding how to weight them and how to look at them. Overall, once a business is deemed eligible, having met those basic criteria, you're evaluated on 4 types of criteria. First is your business profile, and that would look at how long has your business been open, as well as how many years of experience does the owner have. Gives us an idea of your ability to weather the storm. We also look at the financial impact that COVID has had on your business and looking at how that is impacting your future operations. We look at your employment impact. How many FTEs do you have so that we can assist the most amount of people possible? With businesses without employees, we look at your fixed costs as a ratio of your overall costs. And finally, we looked at sector and community economic impact. So there's 3 sections here. Is your business in a Jobs Ohio designated distressed zip code? Is your business in an industry sector that is particularly vulnerable to COVID-19? We all know some businesses are struggling more than others. And lastly, is the business a disadvantaged business enterprise? Is it owned by a minority? Is it a woman-owned business? Is it a disability-owned business? Is it owned by someone who is LGBTQ? We'll ask you those questions as well. So once again, the deadline to apply is this coming Sunday, September 13th at 11:59 p.m. Once you apply, your application will be scored for eligibility and against the award criteria. We will be announcing the awards on September 28th, 2020. Because this is being funded with public money, it will be announced publicly. If your business is selected for an award, you'll be contacted to provide some final documentation. We will have a grant agreement that you'll need to sign prior to receiving the money. We'll need a W-9, and we'll need a copy of the first page of your 2019 business tax return. Or if you're a sole proprietor filing a 1040, we'll need the first page of that plus your 2019 Schedule C. Your eligibility and your determination of good standing on tax obligations will be verified at that time. Once those are verified and your documents are all received, we'll issue a check for the grant. We'll need further verification of the business expenses and how you spend the grant funds filed by December 15th, 2020. And this will be part of the grant agreement that you sign with us. These would be receipts or other proof of how the money was spent, such as a canceled check, payroll journal, things of that nature. And one of our staff will be working with you to get all of those documents ready. Hopefully this presentation has answered most of the questions that you have, but if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to the Chamber staff. If you use grants@richlandareachamber.com, there are several of us that are checking that email and you can get a quicker answer that way. Or you can certainly call the office at 419-522-3211. When you're ready to apply, just visit our website to get started. www.richlandareachamber.com. I want to thank the Richland County Commissioners, the Mayor of Mansfield, and the other cities and villages who are signing on to give some of their CARES money to help our local small businesses. We certainly could not have done this without their leadership on this cause. Again, visit richlandareachamber.com to apply. Remember, the deadline to apply is Sunday, September 13th at 11:59 p.m. Thanks, everyone.